Robert McDowall.
Hello, Cameron.
Welcome to CamTalks.
Good to be here, and I hope we have an interesting conversation.
I do hope we have an interesting conversation. I know we're going to have an interesting conversation. Robert, it's been, I guess the last 3 years of me sort of being on Alderney, I quickly found who were the people who had attempted to make the changes on this island. And I found no one more knowledgeable about sort of, I guess, fighting to make changes than yourself. Is it fair to say that you're a bit of a Marmite character on this island?
I think so, yes. I'm not afraid of putting my head above the parapet, and I've got fairly broad shoulders. And if people don't like what I say, well, tough.
Yeah,
You know?
but this is easy in a place like London or somewhere bigger.
Yeah.
But on an island of 2,000 people, can that sometimes be a bit awkward?
Well, I suppose some people may wish to cross the street when they see me, but I'll give them a cheery wave.
Oh, well, I love that. Yes, and you've got such a fun-spirited nature.
Yes. I don't take life too seriously, and I think quite a lot of people, they take themselves too seriously and the issues too seriously, such that it gets them down. You know, I always sleep soundly at night.
Well, that is good to know. Well, is it Bob or Robert? Because I've heard people say Bob.
Both. I mean, Bob. My father was a Robert, and I was a Robert. He was called Bob, and I was called Robert. And then when I worked for the Americans, they tended to use the word Bob rather than Robert.
Bob.
Bob.
Hey, Bobby.
So I answer to both. Is the
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you take me back then? So where were you born? Where did life begin for you?
Well, I was actually born in Southampton, 1949. My father was an industrial chemist by background. He'd done a chemistry degree at Glasgow University before the Second World War, and he went into the Fleet Air Arm. But he was withdrawn after 18 months to work on poisonous gases during the war. Yes, you didn't have. He'd rather not, but you know, if you had this, you know, you had. Yeah.
So he was a scientist.
He's a scientist, yeah.
Wow.
So he was an industrial chemist, and he worked for a publicly listed company called Vanessa for quite a while as a technical director, and spent most of his time on the technical side of acquisitions. They were in the polystyrene business, this sort of thing. So, so born in Southampton, and
brothers, sisters, any?
Two brothers. One's deceased. One still lives in Norfolk.
Wow.
But we moved to Norfolk in the late 50s, 56 or 57, partly because he did a lot of travelling. And you could have a very nice house in Norfolk, and he travelled quite a lot. So,
but your dad was he working for the military, or is it the government, or just private sector?
During the war, it was with the military on poisonous gases, obviously. But after the war, he worked in industry, a number of companies. Some of which ended up as part of BP and the likes. But
wow.
But
then what about your sort of schooling days? I mean, how were you a good kid at school?
Well, I suppose I was pretty bright. I went to a prep school in Norwich, and I passed what was called the 11 plus then, and I went to what was a top-rate grammar school then called the City of Norwich School, and it's a big school. It had 1,000 pupils, and
oh wow,
I was sort of in the fast stream, which was good in many ways, but I ended up in the sixth form when I was only just 15, because I jumped. Instead of taking 12 O levels, you took 6 or 7 O levels in what was called the fourth form. Then you skipped out a year. So I spent sixth form, and then I went to University College London. I did law degree at University College London.
Wow. What was it like going to school back then? Did you get the cane? Is that what they used to do to beat kids?
Well, they did, but it wasn't very manifest in my school, to be honest with you. It was they were. I was in the fast stream, so people were kind of pretty motivated, if you know what I mean. But I suppose the other thing I remember about those days is that a lot of people left school when they got their O levels, you know, at 15 or 16. And interesting enough, the Norwich Union, which is a big insurance company, had its head office in Norwich, and the chief general manager had been to the school, generations ago. So anyone who had 4 or 5 O levels could always get a job at the Norwich Union.
Wow.
Pretty boring work, but when you look back on it these days with insecurity, you had free medical insurance, non-contributory pension, cheap loans, particularly for housing when you've been there 5 years, and so on. I mean, and as long as you didn't run off with the cash, you had a job for life. Pretty boring work, I'd say, but it was. There was more stability, if I could put it like that, than there is now. But I say I did a law degree, and then I worked for Touche Ross, which became part of Deloitte's, doing the Institute of Tax exams. It's quite similar to doing the Chartered Accountancy, but you do a lot of tax and less the other stuff. And it was quite interesting during that time because, I mean, I was only...
What year would this be then?
This would be 1970 to 73.
Oh, the 70s.
Yeah,
so what was London like in the 70s and in the hustle
60s,
and bustle?
It was quite good. I mean, I first couple of years at university, I lived in a hall of residence, and life was much easier and less pressurized then than it is now, because if you got a degree, you got a job. There were no issue. Some got good degrees, some didn't get good degrees, but everyone got
Well,
a
you're
job.
talking to a man that has 2 degrees right now and no job.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely a different world.
And in those days, I mean, UCL Law Faculty is probably number 2 or 3 in it ranking, but in those days, if they liked you, they asked you to get 2 A levels. It didn't. I mean, I got more than 2 A levels, but that's beside the point. And it was, yes, it was quite interesting.
So was this kind of pre-Thatcher time?
Yes, it was.
Wow.
Yes.
And do you feel like was there like a bubble to have been burst at this point? Because it sounds like the trade unions and it was a different ideology.
Well, in the late 60s, I mean, and this gives you an idea of very few people relatively went to university. I think about 3 to 4% of the population, the school population of that year. And I didn't live in Norwich. We lived on the Norfolk Broads, actually, a village on the Norfolk Broads, so I lived in what was called the county. And in those days, only about 60 or 70 people went to university. And they were trying to encourage more people to go to university. So in addition to whatever else you got, you got a £60 scholarship. It wasn't means tested or anything, which not a lot by modern standards, but it was quite good.
A nice little perk.
And it was to encourage more people to go to university, because a lot of people, did law, accountancy, or something. They used to get their A levels and go and work for the solicitor and or the accountancy firm or the surveyor and do the exams at the same time.
So this was like the beginning of sort of the white collar jobs. Is that right?
Well, it was at the time they'd also built 3 or 4 new universities: University of East Anglia, York, Warwick, and Kent, I think it was, because they wanted to encourage more people to go to university. So it was the beginning of that time. But no, anyway, I got quite a good degree, and I had the idea of becoming a tax barrister.
Oh dear, what gave you that idea?
It was quite lucrative, but and of course there was a lot more opportunity for avoidance then than there is now. But anyway, to come back, I worked for Touche Ross while I was doing the Institute of Tax exams, and you were divided into groups, and I had 2 types of clients: media companies and stockbrokers. Now, for example, the Beatles Apple Corporation was a client.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God, they tried to sue my dad.
Did they?
Yeah, my dad's company was Apple Television, he got a letter from you.
I know. I was too.
So they were one of your clients.
Yeah, I mean, I was just the grunt doing the computation, or sometimes you might have to go along to a meeting with a tax manager partner. Yeah, you wanted someone to take the notes or something like that.
Wow.
But and then the others were stockbrokers, and I thought, cool, they earn a lot of money. Anyway, got my exams, you see, and it would never happen these days. I sort of typed a CV and sent out a handwritten letter to 4 broking firms, 3 English, an American firm called Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner and Smith.
Oh, I think we've all heard of Merrill Lynch.
Yeah, well, and it would never happen now. But I got a job on one interview.
Wow.
But it would never happen now.
Just a cold letter.
Yeah, cold letter. And, you know, I went along and I tell this story now, but I'd written to the commodities side of the business rather than the stock side. So anyway, I went along and, forgive me, I think qualified I was earning £2,500 a year or something like that. So they offered me a job, £3,750, which was enormous. And for the first 2 or 3 years, I worked for this high-rolling Arab called Mohammed Shabaji, and he was the 3rd highest commission earner in Merrill Lynch at the time, $1.5 million in the mid-70s. That was a lot.
Would have been worth what? Hundreds of millions today.
Well, a 5-figure dollar sum, let's put it like that. But we and most of his clients traded gold and silver on margin. They were mainly from the Middle East, so OPEC was a client, for example. 1 or 2 families like the Assad family, the Central Bank of Libya. So there's some quite interesting clients, but of course there wasn't the regulation around all this stuff then. He had 5 of us working for him, and I will remember after the first year, I went back to Norfolk for Christmas, and Mohammed gave us 100% bonus. Probably wrote it out of his own pocket, but
wow.
So it was enormous.
Did you know much about these people though? Because
it was purely. I wrote speculatively, but and you wouldn't get a job on one interview like that. But anyway, I ended up staying with Merrill Lynch until 1990.
Now, Merrill Lynch, now I don't know much about finance, but are they the ones that went bust?
Yes, about 2000. Well, they were acquired by Bank of America. They got mixed up in the mortgage-backed securities.
Yes, I've seen the movie, The Big Short.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what were you doing at that time?
Oh, I'd long left them. I left them in 1990, and
wow,
it was
moved into a different job.
I moved to another US broking firm called Prudential Beige. It had been a big broker, but it was owned by the US Prudential Insurance Company, which had got nothing to do with the UK.
So how did they do during the crash?
They'd gone out of business before sometime in the early 2000s. But I was hired to start what's called a prime broking business, which was bring in portfolios to manage. And no, my first customer was the son-in-law of General Franco.
Oh wow, the Italian dictator,
the Spanish dictator,
Spanish dictator,
and that again that came about partly because quite seriously, partly because I knew the guy who ran the Madrid office of Merrill Lynch at the time, and his father had been head of the security services for Franco.
Oh my gosh!
So I knew, and and Merrill Lynch didn't do this sort of business. So anyway, that was one. And then the second one was a member of the Pinochet government.
Pinochet being
General Pinochet, who ran Chile.
Oh wow! Yeah. So how the hell? I mean, these type of people. I mean,
well, when I worked for Merrill Lynch, had a big operation in South America. They had offices in Venezuela, in Chile, in Argentina. They used to do work with the Central Bank of Paraguay and all these sort of people. But the point was that their client base there was not price or rate sensitive. They held all their assets in dollars, and they held them not in the country but offshore, if you like. So it was a very thriving business. I mean, mind you, some of the clients, particularly in Argentina, Chile, had let's say, gone to South America in the late 1940s from Europe.
We know a little bit about Nazis over here.
That's right.
Interesting.
So anyway,
So when did offshore banking kick off? I mean, because I imagine that was around.
Well, I'll tell you, offshore banking. Now, offshore banking started in the Channel Islands, really in the 1960s. There was a guy called George Bolton, who was the international director of the Bank of England, and he was wondering, what should they do to help the Channel Islands? And there started to be a bit of banking here, but the real impetus to it was Harold Wilson. Harold Wilson devalued the pound. You may have heard from your mother and father that he devalued the pound there were fixed rates of exchange in those days, and he devalued the pound in, was it 1967? But the most important things were that sterling, which in those days could be held in what I loosely call the old colonies, Australia, South Africa, so on, could no longer be held there, but only in the overseas territories and the crown dependencies. So banks and people moved their deposits to there. They didn't want to put them back in the UK because they'd have been taxed on them on a remittance basis. So, and the commercial banks, the clearing banks in the Channel Islands, and then people like, I think Rothschild set up a subsidiary, Kleinwort Benz and others set up a subsidiary in the early 70s, and then there was a burgeoning of capital markets. So we got Harold Wilson to thank for.
That's incredible. And so I guess and you were quite young at the time when all this was kicking off. What did you think when it was just good opportunities?
Well, yes. I mean, it was good opportunities. The most countries still had capital controls and so on, but the big business apart from the domestic stock exchange business, the big business was the Eurobond business. Because of legislation in the States, a lot of dollars were held offshore for tax reasons. And also the Russians used to hold lots of dollars, but they wouldn't hold them in the States just in case they may get impounded. So there are lots of dollars sloshing around in Europe. And some of the banks came up with the idea of issuing bonds denominated in
you're going to have to help me out here, Robert. What is a bond?
A bond is a fixed rate obligation for a period of time. It's like a debt issue, and a lot of
like a loan.
It's a loan, yes, exactly.
Long-term loan.
Well, it can. Eurobonds would be from 5 to up to 25 years. I won't go into the technicality.
Yeah, go and listen to a finance podcast if you want to hear about that.
Yeah. No.
and so this was, I mean, the Channel Islands obviously then became known as a tax haven, a haven.
Absolutely. And there wasn't that much regulation around until 1987, the first Financial Services Act in the UK. Prior to that, it was the stock exchange or the Bank of England was responsible for oversight and so on. And it was a bit like a club in the sense that if people offended the rules of the club, it was difficult to do business or respectable business. But and that was all right when it was a smaller population, if you like.
But of course, the world is now coming to the UK and coming to the Crown dependencies.
So they introduced the Financial Services Act in 1987, and I remember going to a conference where the minister was talking about what was going to happen and so on, and I went along, and it was crowded. I said. Compliance must be a growth area. Little did I realize how true my words were at the time.
Wow.
But compliance started coming in, and I chaired some group putting it into rule book for cash and security segregation, and it was about 8 or 10 pages. And I had reason to look at this about 10 to 12 years later, and it had grown to 88 pages.
Oh my gosh!
But it
and beyond.
But it had the stamp of the lawyers all over it.
Right. Okay. So is it fair to say then? So like the UK's unfair advantage in the world, apart from colonising half the world, was genuinely that it was very quick to jump on finance.
Yes. pretty innovative so far as finance.
I want to take a quick break now to thank Alderney Electricity for sponsoring this podcast. On an island of just 2,000 people, sometimes it can be quite easy to take the energy that we have for granted. But behind every light switch is a team of electricians, engineers, and administrators working hard to keep us going. And they don't just power our homes, they power our community. Through local sponsorship like this, Alderney Electricity continues to support the events, the projects, and of course the stories that bring this island together. So Alderney Electricity, thank you very much for keeping our lights on and for sponsoring this podcast.
But tell me about your story sort of coming to Alderney. When was the first time you ever came to Alderney?
Well, we first went to the Channel Islands in the early 90s when our son was young. We went to Herm Island for a couple of summer holidays in August.
Why did you go to Herm?
It was just
a holiday.
A holiday. I mean, we'd never been there, and we went, and I never go to Herm in August now, but that's beside the point. But so we went, and James grew out of it, sort of thing. And Susan and I used to come back to to Herm for a sort of long weekend or something once a year, and we came to Alderney in 2006, I think it was, and Susan twisted my arm, and we bought a second home here the next year, and so I think we completed in end of 2007, 2008. And to be honest, I didn't know whether we'd open it at Easter and shut it in October, but Susan spent more time here, got involved in this and that. And we sold up it. We lived in Tunbridge Wells. We sold up in Tunbridge Wells in 2011, actually, and then moved full time here. We bought the house we now have in St Martin's in 2012, 2013.
What was it about Alderney that you liked immediately?
Well, if the wife likes it, that's 80% of the marks. Happy wife, happy life.
I love that. So she obviously fell in love with the small community. You must have been fascinated by the regulatory and the laws and how.
Well, it was a bit bizarre. I have to say, and I got involved. I became chair of a private equity broking group in Guernsey called Ubicap, and they used to do private equity broking, and a lot of it was based on tax avoidance. And if essentially you get the legal opinion from the KC, you go along and arrange the financing at the bank and then run it. But of course, that was they were starting to crack down on tax avoidance in 2011, 2012, and we actually just ran the business down in 2013, 2014.
So you definitely found, is it safe to say that between Guernsey, Jersey and Alderney, there's a lot of finance people?
Yeah, yes there are, but most of it is actually administration. The transactions are booked and administered here. Most of the dealing, it's forwarded to London for dealing. They might book it in the name of ABC Bank, Guernsey or Jersey, but it's mainly administration work. But of course, because it's a low tax jurisdiction, and historically has had minimal regulation, although I think that has certainly changed now. It was a free and flexible place to do business, but I do feel that has changed now. And
what is the benefit of the Channel Islands and Alderney and Guernsey and Jersey?
I'm not sure any longer, if I'm candid with you.
Wow.
Because
it's all changing.
I think financial services have plateaued for 2 or 3 reasons. First of all, there's a lot more competition from other offshore jurisdictions, be it in the Caribbean or in the East. Secondly, there's a breadth of financial services which requires regulatory oversight, and the regulators don't have the bandwidth or capacity to oversee more complex financial structures and supervision. So the only way they can do it is by hiring people in from the UK, and that is costly. So the fees go up 10% every year. But these sort of younger people, if I could put it like that, in their late 20s to early 30s. They come for 5 years in Guernsey or Jersey, and they go back to bigger and better things in the UK.
Well, that's the story of this island, isn't it?
Exactly.
Struggling to hold on to the youth.
Exactly. And I think the other thing is, of course, with more complex regulation, they have to be mindful of regulation in other jurisdictions much more than they did.
And of course, the new AI. I'm sure that's
well. AI is going to have quite an impact on the administrative stuff, because not all of it can be done by AI, but because I think AI still needs qualitative oversight, but it can do a lot of what I call the grunt work, analyzing figures and so on, that is traditionally done by back offices, and probably even more importantly by young graduates. You may have read that these big accounting firms are not hiring as many young graduates now, because a lot of the stuff can be done by AI. It still needs checking. Law as well. A lot of the basic legwork in law can be done by AI. Still needs qualitative checking, but that's the way the world is going. And
well, times are changing so quickly, and I'm quite excited, really, because being on this side of the fence, innovation is something I really like, and I love the fact that we're a small island. Like we can still just about make our own laws. But you've had quite a breadth of experience within the states of Alderney, because so when did you join the states of Alderney?
2013 I did a 4-year term, 2013 to 2016.
Wow, what was that like?
Well, it was, in many ways, it was easier than it is now. There wasn't as much red tape and bureaucracy. Meetings never lasted beyond lunchtime. And I sense there was a more practical aspect to things and getting things done than there is now. They get tortured by bureaucracy, processes and procedures. So even the simplest things these days get bound up in red tape.
What was the proudest thing that you could have achieved? I know it's difficult for people to make things happen, but you must have done something great.
Well, I think the most important thing I did was sort out the pension fund here. I happen to know something about that sort of business, but and I
right man in the right time in the right place.
But basically, there was a state's pension fund, and it was down to £3.6 million, the sum, because people were taking annuities out of it. So the state supported me on it, but I closed the defined contributions pension fund, and there was still enough money coming in to pay out the pensioners, and then we closed the defined benefits and we opened defined contributions. So you had people had personal pensions thereafter, but the important thing was the fund had been invested in the same sector since it started in 1980. There'd been no change at all. Absolutely ridiculous.
So just to give me a very layman term, so a pension fund essentially is that when everyone's paying their pensions in, that money can then get invested in particular schemes to benefit the pensioners or the fund?
To benefit both the fund and the pensioners, because
so it's sustainable.
Yes, exactly. So people retire, let's say it's 60, and they actually live till their early to mid 80s.
Happening more and more.
Yeah, exactly. And the important thing was to get some capital growth into this fund. So I was a trustee of the pension fund. We obviously had professional advisors, but I know something about this. And I was a trustee for, was it 6 years, something like that. So it got it to grow to 7.1 million, which wasn't too bad in the time. Everything was documented. I probably, how should I put it? I didn't exceed my authority, but because I know something about it, I knew the questions to ask, and I have instincts on where things are going. So that worked pretty.
Well, you took the lead, took the initiative.
I took the initiative. A rather dull area for most people.
Do you know what though? I love that because a lot of what happens in government is so misunderstood, and I think it's a real credit to you to bring your experience and actually put that to life. There is one particular story about you in those early 2012 times. And I read it. It was the BBC had reported about a new Bitcoin commemorative coin.
That's correct.
That was proposed in Alderney in 2012. You wanted Alderney to have its own
2012, 2000. Yes,
coin.
Yes, at that time, commemorative coins were minted by the Royal Mint, and I had the idea of issuing a commemorative coin impregnated with a Bitcoin.
Oh my God!
Now, the Royal Mint were interested in this because they were trying to experiment with tagging technology, which could put identification into coins, you see. And so we came up with the idea of issuing, we're going to issue 250,000 of these coins. They were about the size of a £2 piece, gold. They were gold, so and they would have retailed at something like £1,200, £1,300. $600 was the Bitcoin.
Oh my God, Robert, you're killing me here.
Absolutely, component, and then there was the gold. So you were taking a bit of a risk with the Bitcoin, but there was some tangibility.
Absolutely, and of course these days.
Well, it was quite interesting because I mean, the civil service here was not much help.
They probably didn't understand it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Roy Burke was in charge. I mean, as a worthy fellow, but didn't really understand it at all. And civil servants' agenda is often to keep things as they are.
Yeah.
But anyway, we proceeded with this, and the Royal Mint were very much engaged with it. The business development director, chief executive, and then the FT got hold of the story, and it's the only time I've appeared on the front page of the FT.
You're on the front page.
Yeah, quite seriously, yes. Only time. Alderney to launch its own Bitcoin. You see, well, the Chancellor at the time was George Osborne, and the Chancellor has oversight of the Royal Mint, and the chief executive got a bollocking quite seriously, and they had to sort of back away from it.
Wow. So this wasn't this. I mean, this has gone more than local now. This is national.
Yeah.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, but if we had all just decided to buy our own Alderney Bitcoin coin,
well,
we would all be millionaires.
Well, yeah. You know the price of Bitcoin. Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy, Robert. What's going on?
Well, it's people. People are very frightened of innovation. I had a little bit of a run-in with the Guernsey Financial Services Commission because commemorative coins were not then regulated, and there wasn't the anti-money laundering stuff has strengthened since then. So it was nothing to do with them, but they weren't very happy about it, and reputational damage. I was told. Well, what amused me is the chief minister, Peter Harwood, had to resign 6 months later over some cock up with the local stock exchange.
Oh, classic.
So absolutely.
But it's funny because obviously anyone that knows about cryptocurrency knows that it can be notoriously difficult to get into. If you have a digital wallet and stuff like this. But this would have been what they would have called a cold wallet, something that would just be in your cabinet,
precisely,
and you'd say, "Honey, is that a Bitcoin in our cabinet?" And then you would have basically been able to find out that the value of this thing had increased by thousands of percent.
And there's a little reader where you can identify that there is a Bitcoin impregnated
That's
into
incredible.
it. So, but no, so it didn't take off, and and that there were three things I sort of understood from that. One is that there was a lamentable misunderstanding of cryptocurrencies and of the function of money. Secondly, I pretty gather that the civil service here, while worthy people, this is way above their their pay grade, and in fact the pay grade of the civil service in Guernsey. And so I thought, well, they're not really out for innovation. I mean, but I always decided after the first year I'll do my 4-year term, but there's other things I can do.
But that, I mean, it's kind of understandable, isn't it? Because on a small island like Alderney, we are bound by our experience,
Exactly.
and there's not a huge amount of problems when you look at it.
No, quite.
I think it like looking at the future, it should be someone's job,
exactly.
for sure. But I don't think it's something that many people need to worry about.
The other thing, well, whether I should be proud of it or not, I'm not sure. But
no, please.
But from the early 90s until 2015, the costs of running Alderney versus Guernsey were not known. In the early 90s, and when Guernsey was a land of milk and honey, they said, "Oh, no, we'll just aggregate it. We won't show them separately." And in 2000, I thought, well, look, how much does Alderney contribute? How much costs and so on? So I started the process of unbundling the costs and income. You see, which there's been some backlashes after that, but it's absolutely necessary.
Absolutely, because of course in the 1948 agreement, Guernsey are responsible for a lot of our infrastructure,
precisely,
but we pay our taxes to Guernsey.
Absolutely. So you need to know what is the cost of these things, and what Alderney contributes, but there of course have been other costs added since you have legislation coming through every year, particularly in terms of health and social services, which has also added very much to the cost.
So how far did you get in terms of looking in the magnifying glass?
Well, we got the costs. We got the costs unbundled.
Step one,
and that was as far as it went. And they didn't really pursue it after I stood down.
And how does that figure out now? I mean, because I think a lot of people are questioning whether or not we're a burden or we're an asset.
Well, it's manifested itself again as the public finances have deteriorated in Guernsey. They put more focus on this, and they've deteriorated since the 2013-16 period. I wouldn't say they were wonderful then, but they were certainly in a better shape then than they are now.
Wow.
And so they're being looked at now. The other thing I suppose I did do was I got an exercise done with the obviously assistance of the Gambling Commission here, and to be fair, with the States of Guernsey, to evaluate what the economic and financial contribution was from the gaming to the Guernsey Exchequer. That was, I think it cost 30,000, or he paid 15,000, and so on. I think that at long last is coming to fruition, because I think it sent out some rather uneasy messages for Guernsey, but I think that's coming to fruition now, and I think you'll find now that the contribution is at long last going to be recognised in a way it didn't when this exercise was first done.
Wow, it's interesting as well, because like people in Alderney kind of take for granted the fact that we live on a beautiful island. We kind of do what we want. They always call it Alderney time, so everything's ish. But behind the scenes, the world is moving quicker than ever, and if you don't keep up with the world, you'll be left behind.
Well, I generally think this is a challenge which the Crown dependencies have. They're a sort of idyllic backwater, and I'm afraid I think a lot of people come here to get away from things, and increasingly so because of there's more turmoil in the world than there was even 10 or 15 years ago, and they almost want to shut themselves off. But you've got for example, defence and security. We have lots of submarines running around the. Oh yeah.
Do we?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Submarines
running around the. I mean, this is where the Atlantic and the Channel and the English.
I never even thought about it. I knew there was a lot of ships out there.
And of course, the UK is increasing its defence spending. A lot of that will be technology. And I think the Crown is an ideal place to put some of the technology.
Okay.
Particularly, if you're talking about data center sort of thing, and the prospective energy opportunities around here. I don't want to go into.
Well, I mean, we've always known that the tides around here are perfect, and renewables could be a thing.
They will perfect that, but
But when you say we, like who is we? Because on an island of 2,000 people, I think everyone thinks that somebody's doing something.
Yeah.
When really it's like, oh no one was even looking at that.
No, exactly. Well, I think a lot of people, dare I say it, put their heads in the sand and expose their thinking parts.
Well, I understand that now because as someone who's 33 years old, I've been presenting to the States since 2016 was my first time talking about social media and the importance of digital marketing. And I've had sleepless nights where I've been cursing the people for not listening and seeing the way the world's going. But then you really try and be empathetic and you do understand that actually you don't know what you don't know, just as much as I don't know what I don't know. And I often, people come to me and they tell me their idea and I go, I don't have time to do your idea. I'm doing my idea.
But no island is an island.
Yeah.
You
feels like one.
but you can't ignore what is going on in the rest of the world. And I think quite a lot of people come here to literally get away from what they see as the bad things of the world. Now you can do that to some extent, I suppose, but the grim reality is that you are connected.
But do you think that like decision making is such a it's like a political thing as well, I mean, if I imagine that if this was a tech firm or one of the financial institutions running an island, they'd just look at the facts and they'd be very unaware of the relationships and stuff. But we send our States members into a room and we expect them to all come out smelling like roses. But they all go in there with their lives.
I mean, most of them are very well motivated, and they don't realise often what they're getting themselves into, and there can be a lot of head banging, if you like, getting nowhere, getting sucked down into the processes and procedures.
It's like, I mean, in business, it's like best idea wins.
Exactly.
Whereas in Alderney, it's like maybe the loudest voice wins, or whoever's got more support from each other.
Exactly right. So, I do question the the governance structures of these islands, and in fact, one of the things I suppose I was behind, if you like, was there was this McDowall report as to how to improve the governance in these islands.
I think I've read this report.
And it was produced towards the end of 2016, and they fannied around since, frankly.
And what was the sort of summary of this?
The summary was
less people,
less people, more executive style government, more streamlining of certain processes, and it would have cost £250,000 to £300,000 to implement. You wouldn't have done it all at once, but over 2 to 3 years, a whole menu of things, and it still needs doing. It still needs doing.
We've got a lot of great reports out there, haven't we?
Great reports. And then the I suppose the other thing was, and I upset the law officers in Guernsey on that, which is not difficult, but Alderney company law is so inadequate for establishing more than lifestyle businesses here. No larger company would incorporate under Alderney company law. Alderney company law, as I put it to lawyers, is somewhere between company law development between 1929 and 1948.
Oh, bloody hell!
It's way out of date. Anyway, I got this went through the Policy and Finance Committee. I mean, I'm not sure they quite understood what I was talking about, but it it cost 20,000 to have this done. It was a benchmarking of UK company law versus Alderney company law, not to implement all UK company law, but to main differences. Anyway, we came up with a number of key changes, some short term, some medium term, some long term. And I say I got my old law faculty, University College Law Faculty, to do this. They do quite a lot of public engagement.
Yes,
work.
I'm aware.
And the law officers were pissed off because they weren't asked to do it. Well, the quality of thought from the law faculty infinitely superior to that of the law officers in Guernsey, frankly. They weren't very happy. Anyway, we came up with some proposals, and again, they didn't progress. But you will not get major businesses incorporating it. They may do business here, but they wouldn't incorporate it under Alderney law. It's a joke.
All right. Well, that's I mean, that's one of the many sort of jokes. And I mean, first of all, I want to thank you very much for giving it your time and energy.
Thank you.
I don't judge you on your wins. I judge you on the amount of attempts you gave. I think this is what I love about this like new like form of podcasting and
yes.
Communication. Like, we're not doing headlines here.
No,
you know, I don't want to know whether he's a good or a bad person.
No,
I want to know what are the things that you've tried to do.
Absolutely.
And I think you've really tried your best, and I think everyone is trying their best.
Yes, yes.
Might not be good enough. Might not be in time.
No. But it's government becomes increasingly frustrating because there are more rules and regulations, strangulation to go through. And I mean, not just here, but in Guernsey and in the UK and elsewhere in Western Europe.
As we see in the Labour government today, you get your head cut off for something completely irrelevant from the job you're doing day to day.
Absolutely. So, you know, politics is a minefield, or and so on. And I wouldn't recommend anyone to go into it. And I can understand why we're moving to what I call ultimately a more autocratic form of government, because with autocracy you can move things along. Now, I don't agree with a lot of what Trump is doing.
What does autocracy mean?
It means you less consultation, less democratic process.
Make decisions
And do them. I don't agree with a lot of Trump, but that is the only way you can accelerate and respond quickly to events, unless you put the country on a sort of wartime footing kind of thing. Which
we are kind of at war now. We're at the crossroads of a.
Well, we are, and I mean, I'm sorry to be gloomy. I think we will be at war.
Physical war.
In 3 to 4 years.
Robert, these hands are not made for holding weapons. Like, what am I going to do in the war?
Well, you'll have to be part of the Ministry of Propaganda.
There we go. Yeah, no, I know a thing or two about that.
Yeah. I want to take a very quick break to thank Bell & Co for helping to sponsor this episode. If you're looking for a place to live on Alderney, whether it's renting or buying, go and visit Bell & Co. They have all the information about what's available on Alderney and can also help guide you to some of the best things to do on the island. Go and visit bellandcoalderney.com and find out how you can escape to paradise. Back to the episode.
Well, it is an interesting time for the whole world. But you've seen these events happen, both in your financial career and obviously, as you're saying, in your political career. Tell me a bit about the 2008 sort of time, because from what I'm aware of the people who were involved in that was the end of the world as they knew it.
Well, what happened was, and it started in the States. There's a lot of these events, and it's moved on. But the mortgages used to be made by home loan associations and so on, same as they were with building societies. But banks got into this, and they packaged up mortgages in different ways for good credit and bad credit. And the basically what happened is they buy up a whole batch of mortgages from a bank. They'd put them all together, and then they'd sell them off and trade them with other organisations.
Do you know, I have seen, you've seen The Big Short?
Yes.
There's a great scene where I think Ryan Gosling explains it, Margot Robbie in a hot tub.
Yeah.
So these were like bad loans, basically.
or poor credit, poor credit.
Poor
loan,
credit. So when that all started collapsing,
Yeah.
I imagine that everyone lost their shit,
Well, what
including Merrill Lynch, your
well,
former employer.
yeah, I mean, basically, the CEO had to go, and they had a loss of 2.6 billion or something like that in one quarter. He had to go, and their balance sheet was weaker, and they ended up by merging, in inverted commas, with Bank of America. They just couldn't. Their reputation had also gone. You see, a lot of banks lost their reputation in that period, well, I mean, all sorts of banks were involved in this, and it had a ripple effect. And
but ultimately, there was a bailout.
There's a bailout.
How long did that, like, from the time that everyone was losing their minds?
The bailout started in 2008, and I suppose you could say it was broadly over by 2012. But that was when this business of quantitative easing came in. What happened was
print new money. Oh my God! Which is why Bitcoin is so important.
Yeah, and Bitcoin came on the scene almost in the slipstream of this in 2008, 2009.
Oh, wow, I didn't realise.
Yeah, because
makes sense.
It does. This Bitcoin was a sort of small technology reaction to it.
Because, of course, there will never be more Bitcoin made.
Precisely.
And which is why it's more secure as a currency.
There was limited money. You couldn't print more. You could break down the Bitcoins, but you couldn't print more money. But what was happening is the central banks were printing more money they buy up they buy up assets from banks, and in return for government bonds, and government bonds are more liquid, and so on. This is to create liquidity.
So essentially, when they created new money, and unless you the punter on the street is making more money, everything's going to get more expensive for you.
Exactly.
And so on, and so on, and so on.
And you know, and we're still suffering the consequences of quantitative easing. Quantitative easing, I call it the river of no return.
Because once you're on it,
it's very difficult.
So is there a stop in sight, or are we all just going to switch to Bitcoin?
Well, clearly there is more innovation with cryptocurrency, the stable coin and so on, attached to, linked to gold or silver or oil and all this sort of thing. And it's coming. But you see, the regulators have two challenges. They don't want to. They want banks to continue to exist as places to put your money and do business, and therefore they do make cryptocurrencies difficult. But also, I suppose, in fairness, they are trying to protect the consumer. Well, they're not. I mean, in fact, they're not protecting the consumer by printing more money, frankly, the central bank printing more money. But, of course, there have been a lot of scams, poor technology, organisation without integrity, getting into both issuing cryptocurrencies and managing them.
Because, of course, if you were to get scammed and HSBC was to be aware of that, they could stop the scam straight away. Precisely. And they could help you out.
Well, they could. I mean, all these banks have big problems with managing the cybersecurity issue.
But of course, they have a reputation to defend, so they're going to help you. Whereas Bitcoin, I could literally rob all of your Bitcoin off you at knife point.
Exactly.
And there's no customer service.
No, exactly.
So it's a shady area. So anyone listening to this who is interested in buying Bitcoin, please do not take this as financial advice. And more importantly, go and find someone, no offense, younger, who understands this, because Robert is actually an anomaly. He should not understand this stuff, but quite clearly we're lucky.
Well, you've seen I've written about it, and I've done some lectures about it, and I remember when you came around with a couple of colleagues about perhaps Bitcoin conference here, which I'd be happy to speak at.
Bitcoin Alderney.
But I wouldn't be all gung ho for it. I'd put some of the risks and issues to do with it, and certainly Alderney couldn't go it alone with crypto.
I'd just love to have a bank that could hold my Bitcoin.
Yeah,
that would be like, I think that is the next logical step.
I believe within the next 2 or 3 years, some of the American banks, their custody side, will start to they have the technology to lodge in safe custody your cryptocurrency.
Interesting.
I think this is coming. I mean, it's not, so there are a lot of rules and regulations around, but I think that is coming, particularly as the US government seems to be more enthusiastic about cryptocurrency, at least the current US government is, than it has been historically.
Wow. Well, I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
Well, look, taking us back to the idea of Alderney, because I think, you're so involved, in the outside world still. You're still doing a lot of lecturing and you're very helpful to a lot of people on the island. But that's the point. When you're on the island, you're also very helpful, bringing your experience there. So you're the treasurer of the library.
Yes, that's right.
And the church.
Yes, I'm giving up the church at the end of this year. I've done it for 13 years.
Oh, bless you. God will forgive you. You've bought yourself a place in heaven, my friend.
Amen.
Wow. And that's completely different scale that you're used to, right?
Yes.
You're counting up the collection.
Exactly right. No, but with the church, it's not so much. I mean, a treasure not just counting the money and putting it in the bank and writing up. You have to look at these things strategically. So I think I've been a bit of a pain in the neck to the Guernsey Deanery Finance Board and others, because I question some of the matters from my own vast experience in these areas of particularly charities. I was treasurer and then president of the Folklore Society, which is a charity in the UK, and I also sat on the finance and investment committee of the Royal Anthropological Society for 7 years. They've got they own their own freehold building. They've got about 7 or 8 properties. They've got about 6 or 7 million in investments plus other things. So I've got quite a lot of experience of these things. But the good folk of Guernsey get very uneasy when you question them.
Bet they do, yeah.
Because sometimes they're out of their depth.
Hence the Marmite.
Hence the Marmite, exactly.
Well, but you must realise that it's all finance and stuff aside, it's helping the island still operate.
Exactly.
Do you feel great? Do people grateful? Are they like, oh, thank you for sorting out the boring jobs that no one else wants to do?
Some are, some aren't. It sort of varies. I mean, for example, I call myself treasurer of last resort, but I became treasurer of the library because my wife Sue is the vice chair, and they needed a new treasurer. Anyway, treasurer, and it's not a big job. But the first thing, the library owns its building. It's got a 99-year lease from the states of that site. It's 23 years in, and one's got to look at what needs doing to the building. It's not, first of all, you can get something, knock a few, but you get to a stage where there may be some sort of substantial sort of repair, or at least plan for them. So I've had that surveyed and so on.
Wow, because it's quite a new building compared to most of them.
It is, but so some of the double glazing will need replaced. Sort of.
You're forward thinking, Robert. This is the point.
Well, yes.
One day someone's going to be like, "Oh, who was the genius that put together that?"
Don't worry, they'll claim the credit for it.
Of course they will.
But and then the other very simple thing, the insurance. And I shopped around, and we got the insurance considerably cheaper than we now currently have it. So we've gone someone else in the UK to get the insurance. And then number.
Because that's your job.
It's your job exactly.
You're supposed to look out for the library and the church,
and also getting more donations and in a tax efficient way as well. So anyway, those are some of the things.
Well, thank you very much for contributing there. You also have a lot of fun. I know we've all been talking about work, but what do you enjoy doing in Alderney? What's the fun things?
Right. Well, I'm interested in classical music.
Oh, is that your phone? Because that sounds like a classical tune right there. Go on, let's listen to this for a little bit.
Can we still...
Do you want to take it? Yeah, we're going to cut right there.
Okay. Sorry. Just a minute. Oh, it doesn't make it's gone now. I'll do it later.
Well, I thought that was right on cue. We were talking about classical music, and suddenly.
So I support the Alderney Music Society, and I tend to sponsor one event a year, and I occasionally write the critiques of the things because
oh yes, because didn't you put together a radio show?
Yes, I did about 50 programs for KFM on thematic things on classical music, and I've kept them because I think they're worth reading. So, for example, I did some classical music programs on the theme of summer, for example, or classical music in the Channel Islands, and so on. So the number of composers.
Because we do have the amazing Chamber Music Festival here.
That's really good. I'm a big supporter of that.
Oh, it's amazing. Did you see the recent one, the Vivaldi and the?
Yes. I mean, I always get a I say season ticket to it, but so I'm very keen on classical music, and I mean, I never. I could play the piano a bit, but I got interested in classical music in the early 1990s because I did some writing for. There used to be a magazine called Music and Musicians, and you would they give you a ticket. It could be the Proms or Wigmore Hall, and they wanted 1,000 words, and you can write 500 before you go on the piece, and then I just fill in the blanks off, 500 words, and so that's how I got.
Wow, what is it about classical music? Because I mean, apart from the stunning performances, which I really admire.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, I kind of feel like Vivaldi's Four Seasons could have just been one.
Yeah.
It all just sounds the same to me. I don't understand.
I mean, a lot of classical music is it's almost a form of painting, if you like. The music is the paint on the canvas, particularly the more modern. What I say, let's say 19th century music onwards. If you go back to the sort of Baroque, it's more structured and formal. But you had the Romantic period. People like some of the French composers, Debussy.
I like Debussy.
Very much word painting. The music paints on the canvas.
So how many periods were there in classical music?
Well, there's about I say early music, medieval, Baroque, classical, Romantic, post-Romantic, modernist. I mean, about 7. I mean,
and they were all learning from each other.
Yes, or some were reactions to earlier genres.
Right. So people like Mozart. Was it early on?
Mozart was basically later 18th century, and that was quite. It wasn't as structured as perhaps Bach was, but it did have a pleasing organization to it. But when you came to Beethoven and so on, there isn't there isn't quite that sort of structure. So the sort of structural side started to
Interesting.
to break
There's that
down.
great movie. Have you ever seen Amadeus?
Yes,
such a good movie because he was supposed to be the person that didn't make it,
That's right.
and Mozart did. Do you think Mozart was really as crazy as he is?
Well,
in that movie?
he was. I mean, his father was a rogue. His father, because he had a child protege, he used to exploit him financially. He pushed him. Yeah. Oh yes. Mozart didn't really have a childhood. He was financially exploited for the purposes of his family, and I think a rather sad character.
Right. How did Mozart die in the end?
I think he had some sort of heart problems or whatever. But
I'm not surprised. Playing so much.
Whereas, you get some composers like Elgar, for example. Elgar, he came from quite a humble background, and he he had quite a struggle in breaking into the classical music circuit. But when he did make it, he made a lot of money, and but towards the end of his life, he got more into horse racing than
As you
music.
do.
Yeah, as you do.
Yeah.
And and he looked more like some country squire out for the day at the horse racing rather than a composer and so on.
Wow.
But you made a lot of money out of.
I bet. I think you kind of take it for granted as well, like because today we have Spotify and all these like we can just listen to anything anytime we want. But that music was kind of like the beginning of everything we have today.
Yeah.
Are you interested in any modern music? Anything?
Yes, I am. I like Arvo Pärt, the Estonian composer. That's very
so a modern classical composer.
Modern classical, very very minimalist in style.
What's his name?
Arvo, Arvo Pärt.
Ooh, okay. I look forward to listening to him.
Yeah. He's about 90 now, but he.
Oh, so he's not that modern then, is he?
Well, yeah. But the style is very
interesting.
It's very modern. I mean, also, I did a program on the impact of AI on classical music, and I played some. They are tuneful, but they lack a kind of originality or spontaneity. You can almost sense that it's been mechanistically put together.
Sure. I mean, it is good though, isn't it? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
If you showed Mozart, an AI music creation tool, I think you would think it was work of the devil.
That's right. But I mean, AI is there, and it's it's going to have a very prominent place, and we're going to have to address what I call the social problems that come in its slipstream.
Oh God, yeah. I'd like what's it called? Where everyone gets income. Everyone just gives you money.
Well, I think we'll ultimately. I've written a couple of pieces on there. I do some work with this commercial think tank in the city, but I've written a couple of pieces on
universal basic income. Is that it?
Yeah. Universal income. So everyone will get and it would come directly from taxation of AI, and there are different ways of taxing AI. I won't bore you with the technical stuff here, and so everyone would get what's I think called a universal living wage.
Sure.
But the problem with that is that's fine, but I don't think it's good for people to have a life of leisure and idleness.
You need purpose.
You need purpose, exactly. And I think the big thing with that is how do you get the purpose into it?
I guess it's a tricky one, because if you don't wake up every day because you have to, then why would you wake up?
Well, quite. You've got to have motivation to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, definitely. It can also be like, I mean, I think we're both very much doers. I don't think we'd ever sit on a beach and just lounge around.
Not my style.
But like, I think it's promoted a lot in culture and on social media that the ideal life is just to kind of like lounge about. I mean, the irony is that like that's what I want to promote to the world about Alderney. I'm like, come here, come and sit on our beautiful beaches. But no, you do want to roll your sleeves up and just kind of get involved in something.
Beach holidays are not for me, I have to say.
It's so funny. When was the last time you went on the beach in Alderney?
Last year.
Okay, that's not too bad.
I have walked on the beach.
Last time you went for a swim?
A few years ago now. I
do you
don't
know,
have time.
there's a lot of people who live on this island who don't go in the sea and they don't go on the beaches, which is fair enough.
Well, I mean, a lot of people do it for health reasons, but I think unfortunately I enjoy robust health. I don't. I'm not health conscious like a lot of people are, but I've survived all right, and I don't go to the doctors.
You're doing absolutely fine, fine man.
Exactly.
You also benefit from the liquid medicine, the good old wine that flows very heavily.
Nothing wrong with some wine, whiskey, and gin, or some in moderation, of course.
Absolutely, and of course you're doing this with people who you've known for absolutely years. I mean, how special is that to be around like-minded people? Same.
Well, I think that's important in terms of stimulating conversation. You don't just want to sit down and, what's the football score sort of thing.
Sure.
But because I think the art of conversation is not as good as it was. Partly, I'm afraid, because of technology and people work in isolation. So, and they don't discuss ideas and issues in the way they did. I think social media has put it down to more clipped opinions rather than reasoned discussion.
We're going to have to clip this bit. You're absolutely right, though. And I believe the famous philosopher, I think it was Socrates, talked about how something like bad people talk about people, good people talk about events, and great people talk about ideas.
Exactly.
And most people today just want to tell you how much of a piece of shit that person is.
Exactly.
And it's crazy.
Exactly.
And I have to stop myself sometimes when you hear the rumour mill going, particularly in Alderney, and you're told about something about someone, and then you're now with someone else, and you're finding yourself talking about someone, and it can just be a bit. You just get stuck then with this judgment. Whereas it sounds to me like your innovative mind hasn't found its big enough group.
No, I think that's right. I mean, people, I really don't care what they say, frankly.
Well, you can't. You really can't. I think if you're talking about ideas where you'd like to have someone to bounce ideas off with, they also need to be willing to talk about ideas.
Precisely right. Right.
Well, that's it. If you go down the sailing club, you'll hear great ideas about marinas.
I'm sure.
We've all spoken about that for a fair few times. But listen, I mean, I'm so grateful that you've been able to share just a little bit of what we could talk about. Just lastly, then, what is your hope for this island? What you love Alderney. You'll probably end up dying here one day.
Well, yes, I'm not immortal.
Touch wood.
I'm not immortal. Well, I do hope it does prosper. I do think it has to be more outward looking than it is, and people who come here shouldn't be coming here to shut themselves off from the rest of the world. And I think there is a lot of that. This is a place of refuge almost for them. It's almost like it's almost like an environmental monastery.
Well, it does feel like that sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. But because as I think I said to you before we started the podcast, I think there are quite a lot of what I call almost social hermits here. I didn't know they lived here, or they. Fair enough, but it's up to people what they do with their lives. But I don't think being a hermit is the most enjoyable and satisfying way of living. But that's just a personal view, Cameron.
Well, no, I really appreciate it, because it's not often that the person that you've heard about is right next door to you or down the street, and so I've really valued having long form conversations with you, and I hope that the people listening to this actually do realize now that there's a lot more to you than just a name that you either love or hate. I mean, what is it about? What do you want people to know about you that you think maybe they don't know?
Well, I'm not sure. I suppose that I'm certainly someone who's intellectually active with ideas, and I'll go and apply them elsewhere if they can't be applied here.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
However, I would strongly suggest that those people who are wary about sharing ideas, maybe with their family or the States or something, can come to you. I mean, you're very, very helpful. You'll always have a cup of coffee with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen to me. Work through ideas. And you need people like that.
And then I will document, come back to you, not with great lengthy tone, but a few thoughts and so on things.
But it's that open-mindedness, which I think that some people don't know what to do with doers.
No,
because doers will just get on and do their own thing.
Do their own thing, exactly. And why is he doing it there and not here? Well, because there's a more receptive audience in other places than here. Simple as that.
It's very, very true. It's very true. Well, look, we are lucky to have you,
Well,
and as
you're
I've
very
said to you
kind.
earlier, like, I'm really grateful that you put your head above the parapet. It's still there.
It's still there.
It's still there. It's
Yeah.
not been shot off yet, like
No.
a few of the states members in previous
Yes, yeah.
generations. So so thank you very much. Is there anything else that you'd like to share or add?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I enjoyed this, and you know, if there's interest, I can come back some other time and talk about some of my other activities, such as folklore and music.
Well,
in more
please.
deep-
Well,
more-
let's
more
not
detail,
cut
yeah.
you off there, then, Robert.
no,
Listen, this is a podcast. I got 6 hours on these cameras.
No, enough for today.
Well, no, I want to ask you this just because I had a guest on recently where we were talking about Alderney folklore.
Yes.
And so because I know you are you're responsible for a lot of folklore in the UK, but what are your favourite Alderney stories? Just lastly, just to finish this off. What are your favourite Alderney folklore?
Well, I think the first year or two when I was here, I was asked to speak to an elderly group of people who were the Alderney hard of hearing. That was it, and
isn't that everybody?
well, it may well be. And I spoke about witchcraft in the Channel Islands, you see, and the last witchcraft trial was in 1922 in Guernsey.
That's not that long ago.
No, and it was it was a botch. Someone had been selling these illegal potions, you see, during the war, and the only way they could get them was under the witchcraft legislation. Yes.
So they burnt someone?
No, they didn't burn someone.
Right,
but they used that to suppress their distribution of these magic potions. Anyway, I did this, and there were a couple of old ladies there, now long departed, and I said, well, who knows? There still may be witches. And this old girl said to me, and there are still some in Little Street.
Oh my Lord!
Yes.
Because that's the thing. Like witchcraft is. I mean, it was a real thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably still is a real thing.
Yeah. Well, quite. Yes.
I've had a few girlfriends that have claimed to me that they're witches, and I don't think they're lying.
Well, there are white witches and black witches apparently, but it's quite interesting. But there are. I mean, I started. I've only got halfway through. I was going on a compilation of Alderney folklore. Now there was a man called he was the bailiff in Guernsey in the 1880s, 1890s, called McCulloch, who wrote a folklore of Guernsey, but he did incorporate some folklore of Alderney. In fact, he was a member of the Folklore Society in those days, which I was the president for 3 years, and he had some interesting stuff. And there's also some contemporary stuff. I did one piece which I shall publish at some point called The Fab Link, Witchcraft Beneath the Waves.
Oh boy. Well, now that is a subject we can't get into.
No, absolutely.
But Alderney's has a lot of stories.
Yes.
What are your favourite stories about Alderney's?
I think they basically revolve around the smuggling era. You know, the privateering here in the 18th century.
So we're a bunch of pirates.
Yeah. This was entrepot for goods from the continent.
Wow. So Alderney were good pirates, bad pirates?
Well, they were no different from the people on places like Romney Marsh on the south coast who used to smuggle in brandy and tobacco and so on.
Wow.
To avoid taxes.
It's amazing because when you think about Alderney's history, you only really think about the war.
Yeah.
You don't really ever think about the times before that, the Victorian age and pre-Victorian.
Pre-Victorian. This was pre-Victorian. I mean, obviously the imminent invasion by Napoleon III was the trigger for troops and forts and so on being built here. But there was an Alderney before that, and privateering and dare I say wrecking as well.
Wrecking? What's that?
Wrecking around the coast. Well,
just like
as they did in Cornwall, enticing ships onto the rocks and so on.
Wow, interesting.
You know, it's happened in Cornwall and Devon, in the 18th century.
And then just take their stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, there you go. That's how we used to do it, folks.
Yeah,
back in the day.
Back in the old days.
What an amazing island this is, there, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly,
like, did you ever think when you were growing up that you'd
no,
be here?
no, I didn't. I mean, my view has always been you can't plan your life entirely. Events come about which lead to other things and so on. So, I suppose we bought the second home here in Alderney spontaneously. I mean, I suppose if I'd taken another fork, I might have bought a place in Norfolk and retired to Norfolk, where I came from. But,
Wow. And we would have been lost without you, my friend.
You're very kind.
At least the pension fund would have been.
Well, that might have been, yeah.
Well, Robert McDowall, thank you very much.
Pleasure.